Shedeur Sanders could save the job of Antonio Pierce. I'm Mitchell Renz, host of the Raiders Report, and coming up on today's show, I'm going to tell you why the quarterback from Colorado, his dad, and a guy by the name of Tom Brady could be the ones that save Antonio Pierce's job in 2025, because I haven't been afraid to say it. We have been saying it for a while. AP's job could be on the line next season, but over the course of, let's say, the last week, I've gotten some information. I'm going to share some of this insider information with you. And by the end of this show, you're going to go, yeah, Antonio Pierce's job might really be safe following this season. So coming up here on the show, we're going to be breaking it down step by step. Before I get into it, though, today's show sponsor is Panda Supps. I love these guys. They've been rocking with me for a long time. And if you want to get some of the protein, some BCAAs, maybe some fat burners, one of my favorite products, nootropics. If you're a late night gamer, if you're in school, hell, if you get like that 2 to 3 o'clock crash at work and you don't want to have any caffeine, take a scoop of the nootropics. You're up, you're awake, you're ready to go. Code TANK, 20% off at pandasupps.com. That link, that code, down in the comments section, down in the description of today's show. So here we go. The first reason of why Shedeur could save AP's job. Shedeur and Deion are big fans of Antonio Pierce. And I'm not talking about a quote that came out last week. Some people were saying it was circulating from last week. No, there was a quote from Deion on July 10th, him saying how much he likes Antonio Pierce. I'm sitting up here telling you today, at the time I'm making this video, November 18th, that Deion still likes Antonio Pierce, and he's liked him since the offseason. Shedeur has a good relationship with AP, which that's really, really going to help out Pierce, especially if the Raiders finish 2-15. I was told by a source last week that, literally, quote, Antonio Pierce can lose every single game for the remainder of the season, and it's not going to matter if Shedeur and Deion want him as the head coach for their kid. That is a big, big statement being made, because Sanders understands AP's current situation. And what do I mean by that? Deion understands that sometimes it takes more than 1 year to be able to get it going in the right direction. Look at last season with Colorado. Yes, they went from an HBCU. They come to Colorado. You go 4-8, and they had their struggles, no doubt about it. But then Deion Sanders gets a whole year, able to prep, able to bring in his players, really implement the system that he wants to run at Colorado, and now they're going to be competing for a Big 12 championship, and who knows, they could make a serious run in the college football playoffs. So if anybody understands what Antonio Pierce is going through right now, according to what I've heard, Deion Sanders understands the year one struggles that head coaches can have. One thing that I really want you guys to do is share this video out there so the entire nation can see it. Help spread the word. I'm talking on Facebook. I'm talking on Instagram. I'm talking on Twitter. Heck, send out a text message to some people. I really, really think that people need to see and understand that Shedeur, Deion, like the idea of having Antonio Pierce as a head coach. And if you're somebody that goes, I want Shedeur Sanders to be my quarterback, Antonio Pierce helps you do that based on all the information that I've gathered over the past 72, 4 days here covering this team. Let's go to another thing here of why Shedeur could help save AP's job. Sanders wants to be a top pick. Well, no shit, Mitch. I understand that might be a little bit of an eye roll, but there is this common thing where people go, oh, Mitch, you've said Shedeur is going to land on the Raiders no matter what, or there's certain teams that want to be able to draft him. I'm telling you that Sanders wants to be the number 1 overall pick. Deion wants his kid to be the number 1 overall pick, and of course they want that. But also, it results in more money. Like, what's not going to happen is Deion's going to say, I don't want Shedeur to play for that team. I want him to play for this team and be the number 21 overall pick. Like, that's not going to happen. They want him to be a top pick overall, and Deion's not going to let certain teams draft Shedeur Sanders. We know that Shedeur wants the financial benefits to being a top pick, and he's going to be the number 1 or number 2 pick according to the person that I talked to over the weekend. It's either going to be somebody who takes him at number 1, or it's going to be somebody who's going to trade up and take him at number 2, because if there's a team out there, like he's not going to play for the Jags, he's not going to play for the Titans, he's not going to play for the Browns. Let's just say that. And if he's at there at number 2, there's going to be a team that tries to trade up and go up and get him because of what it's going to cost, what the benefit's going to be, and because this is what the Sanders family wants. When you look at right now the current teams in the top 10 that Shedeur/Deion would want his kid to go play for, the only teams right now in that top 10 are the Las Vegas Raiders picking at number 4, the Dallas Cowboys picking at number 9. There's not another team on that list that, based on what we know, that Deion wants his kid going to play for that team. So coming up here, I want you to find out what AP has done to give him a second chance. And sometimes you need second chances. And I've been somebody where I'm like, man, if the Raiders don't win any more games, you need to try to bring in a Ben Johnson. I hate to break it to you. Ben Johnson, 0% chance that he's going to be the Raiders head coach. I'm going to do a video tomorrow on the Raiders Report. Make sure you're tuned in, watching that show live, 4 p.m. Eastern Time, 1 p.m. Pacific. Though technically it might be today, depending on when I put this video out. And I'm going to talk about a coaching candidate that's getting some steam around the Raiders, because if they do decide to move on from AP, it's not going to be a Ben Johnson. It's going to be somebody else, but I'll talk about that today, maybe tomorrow. We'll see. Shout out to our sponsor here, Panda Sups. BCAAs, protein, they got all the goods. And I use Panda Sups every single day. I'm trying to eat healthier. If you're somebody that's got a big-time sweet tooth, and let's say it's like 8, 9, 10 o'clock, hell, even after dinner time, and you're going, what can I find in the cabinets? Here's the problem. You shouldn't go in the cabinets because you're not going to find anything healthy. With Panda Sups, you're going to be able to get the protein you need, but you're also going to be able to fix that sweet craving. And this is the best tasting protein that I have ever had, and I am very confident in saying that. Use code TANK for 20% off at pandasups.com. One of the key things for me, though, to make sure that I get up in the morning and go for a good workout is to get a good night's rest. I take a scoop of my sleeper here from Panda, and I am out in 30. Sometimes I don't even take 30 minutes. Sometimes I take the scoop, I take out Chuck. I'm sitting on the couch watching something with Alex, and all of a sudden I wake up like an hour and a half later, and she's like, all right, let's go to bed. If you need some of that because you just need to be able to get some sleep, Panda Sups has got you covered, whether you're trying to crush your workout or whether you're trying to get a good night's rest, which at this point, I think all Raider fans need a good night rest. Let's talk about here why Antonio Pierce might be getting a second chance. And all I'm allowed to tell you is this. Antonio Pierce has, quote, convinced the right people that he's going to be able to get the job done next season. Some of you might use a little bit of an eye roll there, and I'm not going to lie, I kind of rolled my eyes when I heard of that first two, but hear me out and what I was told. Source, Antonio Pierce convinced the right people that he can build a great offense. I was told that AP has made his case that he wanted Cliff Kingsbury, he wanted Jaden Daniels, and because of Washington's success, it is helping Antonio Pierce be able to prove his case of, hey, I wanted this. I wanted this. We almost went out and hired Cliff Kingsbury, but as soon as Cliff Kingsbury heard that he has a 0% chance of getting Jaden Daniels because the Commanders were never going to trade out of that pick, Cliff said, all right, deuces, I'm out of here. Raiders hit that panic button. They go out and they hire Luke Getsy, which was an absolute disaster. And because they went out and got Luke Getsy, because they knew they probably weren't going to get Jaden, you go out and you get a Gardner Minshew. What Antonio Pierce is trying to say is this. If I can get my quarterback, let's say it's Shedeur Sanders, and I can go out and get my OC to be able to pair with my quarterback, I am going to have success because the Raiders would have had success if AP would have got what he wanted. And AP wanted Jaden. Everybody and my mother knew that the Raiders, Antonio Pierce, wanted Jaden Daniels, but it just didn't happen. And you could make a legitimate argument that he's the front runner right now for Rookie of the Year, Jaden. Hate to admit it. Bo Nix deserves some credit too. He's gotten better and better. Heck, Brock Bowers deserves to be put in that conversation as well. But we have seen, especially from the Commanders this season, what a quarterback can do. I mean, you'll go through let's look at the last 10 seasons, right? Of the Washington football team, Commanders, Redskins, records of what they had over the last 10 years, right? There's not a lot of good production here. You can make an argument that this is the best season that Washington has had in quite some time. Does Dan Quinn deserve credit? No doubt about it. Does their new GM, Adam Peters, deserve credit? No doubt about it. You know who else deserves a lot of credit, though? Cliff Kingsbury, Jaden Daniels. And it's wild when you get a dynamic quarterback and you pair him with an offensive coordinator that's not afraid to mix it up a little bit, not afraid to air the ball down the field, not afraid to play to his players' strengths, which is what Cliff is doing with Jaden. That good success is coming from it. So according to the source, AP's pitch right now is that with the right quarterback, that he can get the right offensive coordinator because you need two to tango in the NFL. Pierce wanted Cliff, but Kingsbury wanted to work with Jaden, and the Raiders believe with Shedeur, they're going to have their pick at offensive coordinator based on what I am being told. So here's a real question. If Antonio Pierce is still the head coach of the Raiders, because I would say right now there is a 3 just win babies chance, over to 75% chance that AP is going to be the Raiders coach next season, unless there is technically 2 people that might be able to change Mark Davis's opinion, and Tom Brady is one of those people. But if Pierce is the head coach and Shedeur's the quarterback, who's going to be the Raiders offensive coordinator? You're going to get hit with a YouTube ad break. I'm going to give you some names that you can at least sit back and think about. For a lot of you that watch this show often, some of these names are going to be frequent flyers. So one of the new names is Clint Kubiak, the offensive coordinator for the New Orleans Saints. Maybe he's there. Maybe he's not next season. Brian Daboll, head coach of the Giants. That's another dude that if he were to be fired, I think he'd be a good OC. A lot of names to potentially look at. But I am going to tell you this, and I'm going to do a little bit more reaching out, let's call it. And I'm going to talk about it on our live show on Tuesday, 4 p.m. Eastern time as well. I was told that Pat Shurmur is starting to become a sleeper candidate to be the Raiders' next offensive coordinator if they go out and they also are planning to get Shedeur. So some of you are going to go, well, Mitch, you can't draft Shedeur and then hire an OC. Correct. If the Raiders have the number 1 pick, if the Raiders have the number 2 pick, for what I understand is if they are a lock to get their QB, which probably the only way that you're a lock to get Shedeur is if you have the number 1 pick. Whether you like this idea or whether or not, I'm being told that Pat Shurmur is starting to turn into a sleeper candidate for Las Vegas. The why behind it. This organization, this regime, Antonio Pierce, one of the things that they want is an offensive coordinator that's got head coaching experience. Shurmur's got head coaching experience with the Browns and the Giants, albeit did not go well, but also not the right quarterback fit in that situation. Some might say maybe Shedeur's the better fit there. Also, Shurmur is from the Andy Reid coaching tree. Why does that matter? The Raiders have been battling to trying to catch up to Andy Reid and the Kansas City Chiefs, and we heard Tom Telesco say so many times that AFC West experience matters to him. I know it's a little bit of different experience because the Andy Reid coaching tree Shurmur's with is not necessarily in the AFC West, but these are reasons that I'm telling you, if the Raiders have the number 1 overall pick and they decide to keep Antonio Pierce, I'm rolling my eyes here because this is not what I would do, but they could decide to roll with Pat Shurmur based on what I'm being told. Coming up here, though, maybe the most important reason of why Antonio Pierce's job could be saved thanks to Shedeur Sanders, or realistically, should I say, thanks to Tom Brady. If you're looking for Raiders videos every single day, click that subscribe button, turn on those notifications, because you're not finding another YouTube channel out there that's going to show the commitment to excellence that we do on a daily basis. Hell, I put my body on the line on Sunday during that Raiders game. Why? Because I do that type of shit, because Raider Nation does that type of shit. And if you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, we're going to come up with a plan this offseason to get us back in the winning ways. Let's go to the final reason here of why Shedeur could save AP's job. I was told that the Raiders want a head coach that's okay taking a back seat once in a while to Tom Brady. Not saying that they always want him to take a back seat, but the reason why you're not going to get a Ben Johnson is because if Ben Johnson is the head coach of the Raiders, he's going to call all the shots. That's not what Mark Davis wants. Mark Davis wants Tom Brady, who's now a part-time owner, 5% owner, where he wants to be able to have some control over what the quarterback situation does. And the Raiders want a head coach where it's okay saying, all right, I know I'm the head coach, but I can take a little bit of a humble pill here, and I can let the greatest of all time make some decisions at QB, make some decisions based on how this organization is going to go. So the Raiders, they want Brady to be heavily involved. And Deion and Shedeur want Shedeur to be paired with Tom Brady. If you haven't seen everything going on around Shedeur, around Deion, then you must be living underneath a rock. After every single game this season, when as soon as the Raiders lose, Shedeur Sanders tweets out, "Thank you, God." And he ain't even hiding it at this point. The cleats that Shedeur got last week said, "Thank you, God." What color were they? Silver and black. What do they say? Shout out to the Raiders. It's starting to get so obvious, but also what's starting to get very obvious is what Deion is saying. And Deion Sanders said this last week, and I really want you to pay attention to some of these words here. Deion Sanders on where he wants Shedeur to play. I'm not going to give you a region. I'll give you an understanding. Somebody that can handle the quarterback that he is. Somebody that can handle understanding what he is capable of. Someone that has had success in the past handling quarterbacks, or someone in an organization that understands what they are doing, not just throwing you out there amongst the wolves and you do not have the support and the infrastructure of the team. I think it's very important to remember what Deion is saying here, because it's exactly what Tom Brady has said for months. And it's the exact ideology of what Tom Brady believes a young quarterback should do. Tom Brady believes in developing quarterbacks for long-term success. This is what Brady said on QB development in the NFL literally this year. I think it's just tragedy that we're forcing these rookies to play early, but the reality is the only reason why it is because we've dumbed the game down, which has allowed them to play. It used to be thought of a higher level. We used to spend hours and hours in the offseason and training camp trying to be a little bit better the next year. But I think this happens and it discourages the coaches from going to deep levels because they realize the players don't have the opportunity to go to a deep level, so they're just going to teach them where they're at. 5 years at Michigan, I got to learn how to drop back to pass, to read defenses, to read coverages, to be coached, to deal with winning games, to deal with playing in Columbus, Ohio in front of 110,000 people. I had to learn from being 7th quarterback on a depth chart to moving up to 3rd to ultimately being a starter. I had to learn all those things in college. That was development. And maybe you could say this is a coincidence. Maybe you could say it's a coincidence. But Deion Sanders, what he wants for Shedeur, it's very similar to what Tom Brady's looking for in a franchise quarterback, and it's very similar to the Tom Brady path. This is what Deion Sanders had to say on Shedeur, his own kid. He can deal with anything. One thing about Shedeur that separates him from many quarterbacks is he started every game in high school and every game in college but one. This kid loves this game, and he has an insatiable appetite to win. Insatiable appetite to win. Great job, Mitch. I want somebody to be able to propel him to the next level as well. Not just get drafted to get drafted by a team. We are not having that. So when you listen to what Deion just said there, what Tom Brady just said there, I'm not going to lie. I mean, that is about as apples to apples as you could possibly think. And Deion's not going to come out and say, we're going to be members of the Raiders here. He's not going to come out and say that that's the plan. But look at what they're saying. Actions speak louder than words. I get you. And the action's going to be this. When it's draft night, 2025 NFL draft, the Las Vegas Raiders are going to walk up to that podium and they're going to go, the next pick here, Shedeur Sanders, and we're all going to erupt. We're going to go crazy. Why? Deion and Shedeur want to be paired with Tom Brady. Having a head coach willing to take a backseat to Brady is going to be important, which could save Antonio Pierce's job. The Raiders, Deion and Shedeur, believe Antonio Pierce can get the job done with his guys. His guys, Shedeur Sanders, and then we'll figure out what the OC is. All those reasons is why I think Shedeur, Deion, Tom Brady could save Antonio Pierce's job.